Hey everybody, Spaceman Spiff here with the first episode to come out in a long, long time. Life has been busy. I haven't been able to play Warcraft as much recently, which I apologize. I do wish I could be around a bit more, but hopefully in the near future I'll be around or able to play a little bit more. That's the way life goes sometimes though, right? Either way though, I am really pumped that patch 1.30 has arrived. We have massive changes. I think it's really exciting. Some of the basics of the game have even been changed as far as researches or what buildings produce what units. So I think this is really indicative of Blizzard paying attention to the game and wanting to make really legitimate meta changes, which I feel, don't quote me on this, I don't know, I have no insider source whatsoever, but I feel like this has to be indicative of Warcraft Remastered, right? There's no way they would invest this much time and money into making such substantial changes with no end game in mind. It just doesn't add up to me. That said, though, we're just going to jump into it. I have the Blizzard Battle.net forums site up, and this is where we're going to go scroll through the updates, so I don't have anything special prepared. That's me. I'm sure you've come to expect nothing less. So without further ado, here we go. We're going to start just with hero balance changes, and the Archmage is the first one. I think this is an amazing change. The Water Elemental nerf buff, I guess the health decrease from 25 health points, 50, and then 75 health points are pretty substantial. I think that's going to make a big difference. That's going to really come into play against... Well, it's certain creeping positions that's going to come into play against, right? Because now your water elementals don't stay around as as long. They can't absorb as much damage. So that 25 health points, I imagine that'll make a difference when creeping some of the early militia creep spots. I think it's also going to definitely make the Archmage a little less effective against Elf, because now Abolish Magic from the Dryads, which also got nerfed. We'll talk about that later. Or Detonate from the Wisps are going to do a little more damage. But I think we also have to keep in mind the water elemental damage has been increased, which I find very surprising. I don't think that was necessary. I thought the health point nerf alone would be enough, but the damage buff is nice. That's going to even out the loss. So we still have the same value maybe over time, maybe even more with, it's just a 1 damage increase at level 1, but at level 3, those water Tauren are dealing even more damage. So that's kind of an interesting change. I really like the hit point decrease, though. I think that's going to make a big difference in the human early game. Brilliance Aura changes. Decreased mana regeneration at level 2 from 1.5 to 1.25. I think that's massive. I think that's a great change. This, and at level 3, 2.25 to 1.75. That's just insane mana regeneration. It made the Archmage such a staple of human because every single unit... Well, sorry, not every single unit, but human casters are so effective, and this 1.5 mana regen a second at level 2 is just really, really good. It also made other heroes better because obviously heroes rely on mana. It makes mercenaries better. I think this is really a necessary debuff. I hadn't really considered it in the... Not a debuff, sorry, nerf. I hadn't really considered it in the past, but I think this is a really good change and will decrease the... I'm not sure how to say what I'm trying to say, but it will make the Archmage maybe less frequently the starting hero. He's still going to be the main hero for human, but maybe this will encourage a little more Mountain King play, maybe a little more Blood Mage play. So I think this is a really good 2 changes to the Archmage. It doesn't really hurt the Archmage in that he's still able to do what he does, but just not quite as effective. I think it's a really good change. Mass Teleport increased area of effect from 700 to 800. People always talk about Mass Teleport being rigged, but I feel like any ultimates, you don't see it all that much in 1 versus 1 play. So this is a nice change, I guess, but I don't know if that's really going to affect much in the meta. Moving on, Blade Master base stats reduced from 24 to 22. I love it. Again, this is a great way to nerf the hero without taking out the soul of the hero. Or I said that weird, but you know what I mean. People complain about Windwalk and people complain about Critical Strike. But I disagree with those people. I think Windwalk is a really cool skill. I really like how it's implemented. I don't think changing passing through units or changing the cooldown or changing the idea behind Windwalk would really be a good idea, because that just, again, the Blade Master is who he is. He's kind of iconic for the Orc race, and he's cool, and that's a really cool move. By decreasing the agility, his damage output is minimized. It's like he's starting with well, not a circlet less, right? A circlet would be 2 to all stats, but still, he has to buy that circlet in order to match his old starting stats now, at least in terms of agility. I think it's a good change. I really like it. We'll see how it plays out. Lich, Frost Armor. All levels reduce slow against all units to 4 seconds. I'm not sure what it was at before, but that seems reasonable to me. 4 seconds is still a long time, especially in a fight when you're trying to pick off a Crypt Fiend or something. Especially with the Blade Master having 2 less agility now, that Frost Armor makes a lot of sense. So, good change. As far as I know, I don't know where it was before, but I have no problems with it. Demon Hunter, base stats, reduced agility 22 to 21. Also, I think a great change. I'm not sure why the Blade Master got 2 removed, where the Demon Hunter only got 1, but same kind of thing as I was saying. He has been nerfed now with mana burn costing a little bit extra, and the agility nerf. The Demon Hunter is just going to be... He's still powerful. He's still going to be the mainstay of the Elf army, I think, but at the same time, this encourages a little bit more outside the box play. I like it a lot. Metamorphosis, reduced duration from 60 to 45. Absolutely necessary. I just argued that mass teleport isn't that monumental in 1 versus 1s, and I don't think it'll change the meta. And now I'm saying Metamorphosis nerf is a big deal, but it really is, because Metamorphosis just feels so strong, and it lasts for so long, and the Demon Hunter is just invincible. So, absolutely great change. Keeper of the Grove! Force of Nature. All levels reduced mana cost from 125 to 100. I love it. Just encourage more Force of Nature play. I've noticed a lot of people getting Force of Nature first on ladder. I'm probably not the highest skilled guy, so I'm against, not the highest skilled people, but I really think Entangling Roots is still the way to go. Either way, good change. Encourage this play. Force of Nature is probably... It's not the greatest summoning skill in the game anyway, so lowering mana cost is probably a good idea. An Alchemist nerf. Wouldn't have seen that coming a couple months ago, but I think it's absolutely necessary. Healing Spray has dominated the meta since the last patch. You've seen it in human games, human mirrors. You've seen it in human games really with an Archmage against any race. I've seen it in undead games, I've seen it in orc games, I've seen it in elf games. The Alchemist has been everywhere because Healing Spray has just been too strong. So these decreases in healing, while not major, like 40 to 30, that's a 10 hit point. It's 10 at all 3 levels, isn't it? Yeah. It's not absolutely massive. The Healing Spray is still going to be good, but I think it's a necessary change. I like it. Transmute, increased conversion factor from 0.8 to 1.25. That's a huge buff, and I thought Transmute was already really good, so I like it. Again, it's an ultimate. It's not going to be a game changer really most of the time, so you can really fiddle around with ultimates a bit. I like this a lot. I think it's a good play, or a good change. Tinker, base stats, reduced armor from 4.5 to 3.5. Yeah, I guess. Tinkers are annoying sometimes, so maybe that's a good idea. Pocket Factory now is heavy armor instead of normal, which is very interesting because that changes how you want to focus it down. Magic units now are much better at taking it out, so... excuse me, I have to sneeze. It's not going to come. We all know it's not going to come. It's just going to sit there for a little while and then pass and come back later. Okay. I'm interested to see how this will play out, though. I think I'm not sure if it's a good change or not. We'll see how it plays out. Right, because now also, that's not great for militia. When you're doing annoying Tinker harassing strategies, I think this just became a lot more effective. And that's probably why they reduced the base armor as well. But I don't know. I'm interested to see how that one plays out. And then the engineering upgrade, increased spawn interval time for goblins from 4 to 4.5, 3.2 to 3.5, 2.56 to 3. So we have fewer clockwork goblins at all levels, which I get. Again, the Tinker is a very niche hero. You don't see him all the time, but he always popped up as a third hero because his factory was so good. So making some changes to the factory might be a good idea, just so we can encourage some other styles of play. All right, we don't want any one hero too dominant in any one section of the game, like the Blade Master has been in harassing and scouting. So they nerfed that in terms of damage output, which I know people complain about. The Tinker is kind of the staple summoner third hero because he comes out, drops a factory, and doesn't have to be in the fight anymore. So I think this makes a lot of sense to try and minimize the damage of the Tinker. Cluster Rockets, level 3, increased damage significantly. I wonder why they didn't change level 1 and 2. They're really trying to encourage Cluster Rockets, though, so maybe we're going to have to experiment with that a little bit. Naga Sea Witch, we have mana shield buffs, increased damage absorbed from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Probably good changes. It's still a spell that you're never going to see used just because Forked Lightning and Cold Arrows are so much better. Also, you could just activate the mana shield and then your opponent won't attack you and you're just spending mana and having a Naga attack move without Cold Arrows or attack move without and miss out on Forked Lightning. It doesn't make sense. So probably a good change. I don't think we'll ever see it at all become relevant though. Panda, all levels increased mana from 70 to 75. I think that's a great change. Breath of Fire dominates the meta. It's all over the place. It's good to nerf this hero. Breath of Fire level 1, reduced damage over time from 7 to 5, reduced max damage. Wow. Significant max damage nerfs here too. And reduced damage over time at all 3. So again, Breath of Fire is being nerfed significantly, which I think makes a lot of sense. He's too universal. He's too good against clumps of units. There needs to be, there shouldn't be a neutral hero that just prevents human players from going gyrocopters, right? There shouldn't be a neutral hero that means undead really can't go gargoyles anymore. And I know you can still do it, but he just does too much damage to them. It makes it too effective. I mean that because I've been picked apart by undead players using really good gargoyle harass for the duration of the game while I just struggle to creep my panda to level 3 or level 5, and then even though he is way ahead, or sorry, my opponent is way ahead, when the final fight does come, it doesn't matter. My panda's gotten to level 4, level 5, and I do 2 big Breath of Fire, and that entire economic advantage they've gained by going gargoyles is nullified. So I think this is a good change. Alright, now we're into balance changes. This is where it's really exciting because this is where the game really starts to change, and none of these changes are in the previous patch. There were no changes to balance or units, which again, very, very exciting. So, human balance changes. Flying Machine base stats, increased hit points from 202 to 250. Amazing. That's great against the panda. That's great against what other heroes do you use? I guess Carrion Swarm. That's great for, even destroyer battles. Maybe you can absorb 1 or 2 more waves of destroyer hits or gargoyle hits. I think that's incredible. Increased gold cost from 90 to 100. That matches the increased hit points. I think that's fair. Increased damage from 14 to 15 to 18 to 19. Ah, these are really laid out weird, aren't they? And then we have upgrades down here. Alright, well, I apologize, guys. It's not organized completely fluently, but we're going to be jumping back and forth a bit. But either way, increased damage 14 to 15 to 18 to 19. Massive. That's a really big buff. It's a really big buff. I think flying machines are becoming a much more reliable anti-air unit. You're not going to have a minimum of 12 of them in order to even take out a couple hippos anymore. They're going to be more effective, which is exciting. Militia base stats, decreased duration from 45 to 40. I love it. I think this is going to hurt with power creeping in the early game and nothing else. Maybe in some of those long, harrowing pushes, but it's going to make tower rushing elf players immediately a little bit more difficult, and it's going to make power creeping a little more difficult because those 5 seconds make a big difference if you think about it. When you go to power creep a gold mine and a death knight shows up to harass, if you lose 5 seconds of militia time, your creep becomes that much more difficult to finish. So definitely another heavy nerf to the human meta right now, because that combined with the Archmage Water Elemental hit point decrease is going to really make power creeping a little more difficult. But I like it. I like it. You're switching the game up a bit, making people try different things, and that's what Warcraft needs. Mortar Team. Decreased half damage radius from 150 to 100, decreased quarter damage. That's great. Mortar teams have long been known as the best siege unit in the game, especially with shrapnel. So this makes a lot of sense. It's very good. I'm sure they're still going to be useful. I'm not sure exactly how much space that is in game, but I don't think it'll be enough to nullify them. Mortar teams are still going to play the same role. They just won't be as effective against Elf, which I think we all agree is necessary. Once you get into those big 80 of 80 armories, mortar teams make the difference always. So, Priest, Dispel Magic, increased cast range from 500 to 600. I like it. I like it. I don't see why it wasn't 600 in the first place. 5-second cooldown. Awesome. Just so you can't spam dispels from one priest on a water elemental or a couple summons. Makes a lot of sense. And that also applies to Doom Guards and Panda's Brewmaster's Storm and all of that. So I think good. I think that makes sense. I don't think it hurts the priest really in any way. The cooldown does, but the cast range makes up for it maybe. Good change. Siege tanks. Increased supply cost from 3 to 4. Undead players around the world rejoice. Elf players around the world also maybe rejoice. I think that's good. Tanks are just so frustrating to play against. We've all had so many issues with them. And now that we've also seen the Panda has been nerfed, that makes the tanks that much more effective. So this supply increase is really, really necessary. I'm interested to see how it'll play out and if it will completely remove siege tanks from the meta. I don't think it will. Spellsteal cooldown increased from 3 to 6 seconds. I didn't think it was an issue. I kind of like it though. Just, maybe Bloodlust is slightly more viable against human now. I know it's a stretch, but, Human items. Alright. Ivory Tower. Increased lumber cost from 20 to 25. Reduced stock from 3 to 2. I think that's amazing. Again, that's just going to hurt tower pushes, which seem very strong at some points. That's also going to prevent a human player from towering his expansion too quickly. I like it. I like it. Nerfs to towers are good. Towers are still very strong. It's just you can't get as many of them as quickly as before. So I think it's good. Orb of Fire base stats. Increased hero bonus damage from 5 to 10. So necessary. Everyone has talked about how the Orb of Fire needs to be better for so long. So I love that they are listening to the community and have done this. Damage bonus from 5 to 10 is really big. Put that on an Archmage, put that on a Mountain King. 10 damage is nice. Splash damage radius from 140 to 150, also very nice. Again, I don't know how big that is actually on the screen. I'm not good at visualizing those radiuses. Radii? Damn it. I don't know. I'm not good at judging those, but either way, an increase is good because the Orb of Fire has just been trash for so long. And increased gold cost by 50. I think that's reasonable, seeing as the item has gotten substantially better. And human upgrades. Are we almost done, human? We are, okay. Human upgrades. Defend, damage reduction from 50 to 40. Interesting. Defend is amazing, so maybe that's good. Reflection damage reduced from 100 to 90. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. If an archer's bow arrow comes back at it, it doesn't deal 100% damage. That's reasonable. Damage reduction 50 to 40 is surprising to me because now undead fiend pushes are going to be more effective, right? Things like that are stronger now, especially because towers are also harder to get up. Even though we've only seen tier 2 towers were nerfed. But still, and tier 2 towers were not nerfed. Towers being purchased from the shop were nerfed, I should say. I like it though. Flat cannons. This is so exciting, and this is what I wanted to talk about with the gyrocopters before. The flat cannons unlocks with the keep, and they have more health points, and they have increased damage. Human doesn't need to go tier 3 to fight off destroyers anymore. So a human player can start massing gyros at tier 2 get flat cannons and probably be able to hold off destroyer pushes pretty early. So I think this is a really interesting upgrade. I think it is going to really rattle the meta. It's going to make undeads have to change their play style. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to adjust for it, so I'm excited to see what happens, but I like that they've moved flat cannons to tier 2. It makes sense to me. Swapped command card location. I don't care. Fragmentation shards, reduced half damage radius. That makes sense. Same thing as I was talking about before with mortar teams. Increased quarter damage radius. Interesting. Reduced bonus damage for half damage radius from 18 to 15. Reduced bonus damage from half damage. So this ultimately, aside from this stat, it's a nerf to frag shards, which again, it's all the same thing as I was saying with the previous mortar team comments. They're still going to be great. It's just going to minimize their effectiveness in big battles, which I think is necessary. They shouldn't be the difference between a win and a loss. That's a dumb way to put it. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. Improved masonry increased to 125 and 50. I wish they told us what it cost before. I can't recall exactly, but this again makes sense to me. The masonry is so strong. Masonry in combo with towers is so strong. We've increased the cost of towers from the vault, and we're increasing the cost of masonry. It's all just going to compile into towers being slightly less prevalent in the human game. Also, with flat cannons being tier 2, humans probably won't need to get as many towers in general anyway. It's just all of it is minimizing the reliance human has on towers, which I think is a good thing as long as they compensate human to make the difference elsewhere. Anyway, moving into orc balance changes, we have the Bat Rider, who has increased bonus damage from 13 to 15 to 16 to 18. I've heard some people complaining about this in terms of cheese, in terms of massive 4 versus 4 or free-for-alls, and I really can't comment towards that. I guess maybe that's a pain in the ass, but as far as 1 versus 1 games go, I don't think this is a big deal at all. Bat Riders, you know, if they're trying to cheese you, they're going to cheese you, and you deal with it or you don't. I don't know if this is the difference maker, so I don't have strong opinions of this one way or another. Berserker stats. Base stats increased hit points from 450 to 475. I think that's great. I'm going to combine Berserkers and Headhunters into one. Increased hit points here as well. I think that's great. Increased regeneration upgrade from 0.8 to 1.0 hit points per second. So these are great. Just more survivability on the Headhunters and Berserkers, which was their biggest problem. Everyone said they were too weak and they got buffs. Right? It's awesome. I love that Blizzard is paying attention. This all makes sense to me. Shaman, base stats, increased hit points from 335 to 350. Amazing. Shaman have been too weak for too long. That's an incredible buff. Alongside increased bonus damage from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11. It's still not a lot of damage, but that makes a difference, right? That's an increase of 20% almost, I think. So that's something, and Shaman really need it. This is the biggest thing, though. Decreased mana cost from 75 to 65. Shaman, I think, can legitimately be used now to combat summons. I think you can try and make a point for getting the Spirit Lodge and getting Shaman for Purge to deal with water elementals, which now have less health points, or for dealing with Quill Beasts. I don't know. I think this is kind of exciting. I really, really like these Shaman changes. Spirit Walker, that change doesn't matter at all. Tauren Totem. So we're getting into the fancy stuff now, which I think is awesome because it unlocks at Stronghold instead of Fortress, which is what people have talked about for so long, because now Tauren are a tier 3 unit, not a tier 3.5, as we always said, because you'd have to hit tier 3 and then build a Totem and then build a Tauren, which took forever. Now you can hit tier 3 and immediately have a Tauren building. I think this is great. The fact that the Tauren Totem now trains Spirit Walkers, though, is really fascinating, because I don't know how that's going to affect the meta. Are we going to see now Orc players going tier 2 Bestiary Tauren Totem and teching, and we're not going to see any Spirit Lodge? Does this mean Witch Doctors are not going to be seen as much as that one supplemental one dropping wards? Does this mean that Shaman are going to be more prevalent, or does it mean that no one's going to build a Spirit Lodge at all? So it's interesting, but I like that they're trying it. Also, it just makes sense that Spirit Walkers would come from the Tauren Totem, seeing as they're Tauren. But, yeah. Swapped command card locations don't matter. Orc item, Scroll of Speed no longer applies to sappers. Again, that's what the community has demanded for so long. I'm glad they're listening. That just means that undead bases aren't going to get ruined by sappers. So, very good. Orc upgrades. Berserker base stats increase the damage debuff from 50 to 40. Decreased the damage debuff. So I guess they take 40% damage instead of 50% more damage. Good. Berserker buff. Swapped command card location. I don't care. Burning Oil. Moved command. It doesn't matter. This is awesome. Reduce the attack speed debuff from 80 to 60%. So maybe that negates the extra damage they're doing. Maybe. I guess. Maybe. So again, Bat Riders, I feel like in general their attack and liquid fire is not that prevalent. So unless there are changes made to their movement speed or to their kamikaze explosion stuff, this is not really going to change much. Reinforced defenses, though. This one is massive. Reduced from 200 to 150 lumber. What? And given that stronghold instead of fortress. What? So I know what they're doing here. This is supposed to help with, like the sky push, where human players would push at tier 2. Their orc players are going to be able to solidify a little bit more. It's going to help with expanding on tier 2. But I think this is dangerous business because it's also going to make tier 2 tower pushes with orc very powerful, like the Gruntapult, if you guys have seen me play that. Now you hit tier 2 and also get reinforced defenses. That is hard for elf to deal with. Undead have been having a lot of trouble with this upgrade in general over the past couple years, and now we're getting it at tier 2, so this is also going to pose a lot of problems for undead, I think. So this is an interesting change, but it scares me a little bit. I think this is one of the scarier things we're trying. And keep in mind, everyone, I've also seen people getting up in arms about it. It's the test server, right? This is the test. We're not sure that all of these changes are going to be going live, and they're just trying to make sure the game is balanced right now. So let's not be upset that this is here, but I think this is dangerous. I think this is dangerous. I'm interested to see how it plays out. Spiked barricades, reduced cost. I like it. That's a ton of lumber for tier 3 spiked barricades. So this makes sense. Not going to change much. Troll region, swapped command card location, doesn't matter. On to undead. 2 races left, guys. Hopefully I'll be done soon. Thank you for listening for this far, or this long. Undead balance changes. Acolyte, increased hit points by 10. Increased hit point regen while on Blight by double. That's something. Increased armor from 0 to 1. Increased movement speed from 220 to 250. All of these changes are amazing and necessary. So the Acolyte now is... it has to be the tankiest of all 4 of the starting workers, right? But this is just to stop Blade Masters coming in to harass while you're teching, or Farseers, or human players, or anything from interrupting you mid-tech, because that's been a problem for so long, where you're upgrading the Necropolis, and then you lose an Acolyte, and then you can't rebuild an Acolyte for the remaining time. Now you should be able to keep them alive, hopefully a little more easily. That's what these changes are here for, and they're necessary, so this is great. This is great, and it doesn't change undead, right? People were talking about how, you could change the gold mine so that the Acolytes are inside, just like wisps and stuff, but that's not undead. Undead is what they are, and you can't change their weakness just because it seems like such a glaring weakness. Instead, they altered the Acolyte stats to try and support their survival in those instances. You know what I'm trying to say. I think this is great. Destroyer, base stats, reduced hit points from 900 to 850. Awesome. Reduced Orb of Annihilation, bonus damage from 20 to 15. Awesome. People will probably be upset. Towers have been nerfed. Gyrocopters have been buffed. Orc towers have been buffed, so Destroyers are definitely taking a back seat. I think they've been dominant and necessary for undead for so long that they're trying to make them a little less necessary in every single fight. Because a tier 3 flying anti-caster, like people have said, probably shouldn't also be the undead solution to breaking bases. So I like these changes. I hope undead is still going to be able to deal with human and orc bases, though. That's the fear with the change to the destroyers. Frostworm, base stats, reduced frost breath, attack duration on heroes from 10 to 3 seconds. Amazing. That's insane, right? 10 seconds slow on heroes from breath of frost breath. I think that's madness. So this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm surprised it was this long. It was for 10 seconds for this long. Necromancer buffs. Necromancer buffs. Cripple. Reduced mana cost from 175 to 150. Amazing. Maybe we'll see some more cripple. Unholy Frenzy. Reduced drain from 4 to 3 hit points per second. Amazing. It's not entirely detrimental to use. This is great on Abominations and Frostworms. Hopefully people will try it. Raise Dead. Increased base summon duration from 40 to 45. Amazing. Again, this is 3 buffs to the Necromancer without changing the Necromancer or how he works. So this is awesome. Hopefully it will lead to more Necro play in general. Statue, base stats, reduced hit points from 550 to 500. That's going to hurt undead again. I like the change. I like the change because statues are so tanky and they're always so relevant, and they can make an undead force that otherwise would not be able to contend win a fight. You know, if you have 3 fiends and 2 statues against a much larger army, you can push and pull and survive for a long time because of that hit point and mana regeneration. So again, a little bit scary for undead, but I like the change, or I like the idea behind it. I'm a little bit worried for undead with this patch right now, though. Skeleton Warrior, base stats, increase, some more Necromancer buffs. Amazing. Also Rod of Necromancy buff. So both of those are really good. Skeletal Mage, increased hit points 230 to 240. Amazing. So Necromancer has been buffed up, where statues, destroyers, frostworms have been nerfed. Undead Buildings, Gold Mine, reduced blight radius from 960 to 768. I think that's probably good. Maybe it will reveal that you've expanded a little less frequently, although it does mean you won't be able to build buildings as far out as before, but you never did anyway. So I think that's good. And reduced cost to 225 gold and 210 lumber. That's amazing. It makes expanding a little more reasonable for undead. Those small increments of gold and wood really add up. So I think this is great. It's going to help undeads expand, especially in conjunction with the Acolyte changes. So this is good. Necropolis, reduced cost from 255 to 225, reduced build duration 100 to 90. Amazing as well. Helps with expanding. That's also going to help with the undead trick where, you know, recently we've seen some undeads before teching, or just as they tech, building a second Necropolis as opposed to a Ziggurat, just because then if they're attacked mid-tech, they're able to produce Acolytes. It was only 100 gold more than a Ziggurat before, right? So they'd sacrifice that 100 gold and gain the 50 wood that they would have paid for the Zig to get a 10 food structure that produced Acolytes. So this is good. This is good. These are both really good. Ziggurat base stats, increased hit points from 550 to 600. I love it. People will complain that undead bases are already so strong. That's fine. They're always strong. They're always going to be strong. This is to help them expand again. This isn't to help undeads defend their main. This is to help undeads defend their expansions, and I like it. Undead items. Orb of Corruption. Decreased armor reduction from 5 to 4. Probably necessary. I'm sure people are upset about it, but probably necessary. And that's going to change a lot of undead playstyle, because maybe, maybe not. I think the corruption is still going to be teched too. Or we're going to see people teching to tier 3 simply for the orb still, despite the fact that it's been nerfed. But that alone is indicative of the fact that maybe 5 is too much. So I like this. We'll see how it works, but I think it's good. Sacrificial Skull no longer requires Graveyard to purchase. Amazing. Why do I have to build a graveyard if I want to fast expand every time? This is great. This is great. And base stats, decrease stock regeneration from 60 to 45. Okay. No big deal, but we can get more sacrificial skulls if we want. Upgrades. Cannibalize. I love these. Cannibalize is so underutilized because it's not very good, so buffs to it are amazing. Swapping command location, I don't care. Ghoul and Abomination. Decreased duration from 33 to 20 seconds. So that's already amazing, right? You cast Cannibalize and they'll finish that body in a significantly shorter period of time. I guess you could always stop them from cannibalizing, so it doesn't change a whole lot, but maybe it's good. What's kind of weird to me is the number 33. Why did they pick 33 in the first place? Why was it 33 seconds to consume a corpse? It's kind of weird. Ghouls increase healing from 10 to 16 per second. Abomination 15 to 25 per second. That is massive, and that's really cool. I hope we start seeing some more Cannibalize used in big games. Honestly, I know it's not realistic, but I kind of like the idea of using Abominations and Cannibalism in fights, right? Just your Abomination starts getting weak and you notice it's being focus fired, hit Cannibalize and Death Coil, and I feel like 25 health points per second is going to be tough for people to focus down in smallish skirmishes. So I'm going to be experimenting with that 100%. Devour Magic, decreased damage against summoned units from 180 to 160. That's good. I think that's necessary. It's still very effective at removing spells and everything, but again, it shouldn't be a one-stop shop answer to everything Undead has to deal with, so a little bit less effective against summons is fine. They're still absorbing magic from them. They're still going to get buffed. They're still going to be great against summoning heroes. It's just not so dominant. I like it. Disease Cloud on Abominations. Increased damage from 1 to 2 per second. I think that's huge. Reduced duration from 120 to 90. That's also huge. So Disease Cloud has lasted forever. 120 seconds is so long in game, and it causes problems, and there's no way to remove it. So this was always a pain in the ass. I like the reduction to 90 seconds, and I like the buff because it was already a pain, but you didn't see Abominations or Meat Wagons all that frequently. Now we're going to see more of them. We've seen Abomination buffs indirectly through Cannibalize and through the Destroyer nerfs. So 2 damage per second over the course of 90 seconds is 180 damage. That's more damage than it was doing before. That can't be dispelled, and even if they leave the fight, that damage continues to tick. So I really like the Disease Cloud change. Oh. Disease Cloud Abomination. I wonder if that means Disease Cloud for Meat Wagons has not changed. I wonder. Exhumed Corpse now generates Crypt Fiend corpses instead of Ghoul corpses. Super cool! Now your Necromancers will still be summoning skeletons, so it doesn't matter. But if you use it with Animate Dead or something like that, then you're getting Crypt Fiends, and that's awesome. So I like it. I like it a lot. Just kind of nifty. Frenzy, swapped command card location with Cannibalize. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Skeletal Longevity, 15 to 20 seconds. It's great. So we've seen skeletal longevity buffs here in terms of the upgrade and in terms of the actual skeletons themselves, which were a 5-second increase, I believe. So if you have this, skeletons are now going to be lasting 25 seconds longer than they used to. No, sorry, 10 seconds longer than they used to. But that's still substantial. I like it. Increased cost, that's fine. Skeletal Mastery now unlocks with Halls of the Dead. Amazing! So many Necromancer buffs. Now you can have the anti-air Necromancers at tier 2. Oh, it's so exciting. Sorry guys, my nose is itchy. I keep doing that. But Skeletal Mastery on tier 2 is great. I think Necromancers are really going to be making more of an impact in the current meta. You know, even the fact that they're accessible and reasonable to use at tier 2 is going to change the meta. Even if no one does it, you just have to be ready to deal with it at tier 2, which is so good. Just so good. Stone Form, I don't care. Night Elf changes. We're almost done, guys. Thank you for bearing with me again. Archer base stats increase hit points from 245 to 260. I like it. Archers are just so frail. Archer creeping is so ineffective. You need that Ancient of War tanking it. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but there have been changes to the Ancient of War, so an Archer buff makes sense in terms of early creeping and that kind of stuff as well. So that's what I'm sure it's for. Improved bows, command card. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Chims decreased half damage splash radius from 125 to 100. That's probably good. I don't. Again, those half damage radius things kind of throw me off, but ultimately it means they're not doing as much damage and as big an area of effect. So that's probably a good thing. That's probably a good thing. Druid of the Claw Bear form, damage from 29 to 44 to 25 to 40. So 4 damage hit in bears, which, you know, when I say it as 4 damage seems like nothing, but that's something. I think that's going to make a big deal. I think bears are just generally going to be, well, obviously weaker, but now we're going to see more bears against Abomination fights. I think we're going to see more bear against Tauren fights, and bears are not going to be as strong. So this is kind of interesting and exciting. I like it. I like it. I like it. I love the changes in general. It's just so good. Druid of the Talon base stats increased cost from 135 to 150. That's awesome. That's definitely for the elf versus orc matchup and nothing else. It's just to help the orc deal with that constant influx of more Druid of the Talon. Completely necessary. I don't think it's going to destroy the strategy, but it's going to mean you can't be as... the elf player is going to have to be even more careful about keeping them alive. So, really good change, I think. I think that's going to even out the matchup a lot. Fairy Fire, reduced duration on units from 90 to 7. Oh, also it's what's going to hurt the Druid of the Talon versus Orc is the Tinker nerf, right? Man, the Tier 3 Tinker is not as effective. So, the two in conjunction are going to be really hurting the Elf versus Orc Mass Druid of the Talon strategy. Fairy Fire. Oh, God, excuse me. Fairy Fire, reduced duration on units from 90 to 70 seconds. Reduced duration on heroes from 60 to 40. I think that's great. 90 seconds on units is insane considering it gives you vision of them. So, nerfs there, nerfs here. I think it's necessary. Dryad, abolish magic, reduce damage against summons from 300 to 250. Substantial. You see Dryads used to hard counter the Archmage on Tier 2 and things like that, the Beastmaster. This is going to make a difference. Because Water Elemental hit points have been nerfed, I think Dryads are still going to be just as effective against them. But in general, you're going to have to use more Abolish Magics on the Tier 3 Water Elementals, or Tier 3 Level 3, or on bigger Quilbeasts or Bears or something. So I think, again, I think it's a good change. And it applies to every unit that has Abolish Magic, which makes sense. This is massive! Base stats, increased bonus damage on Glaive Throwers from 36 to 53 to 51 to 68. That's huge. That's so much more damage for a Tier 1 Siege unit. So I've already started, I'll be honest, I've played a couple games on the patch. And I've started doing like mass Glaive Throwers against Elf, and it's starting, like it's looked really effective so far. Already mass Glaive Throwers was kind of tough to deal with. You would see players start with Huntress and merge into Glaive Throwers, and you know those weird games where it's Hunts and Glaives against Hunts and Glaives. Think about it now. Glaives are strong. Glaives are really strong. I think this is going to bring them into the meta, and I think it might be too much, but we're going to see what happens. Huntress, I love these changes too. So for all of you who know, against Orc as Elf, I like to go Firelord, Tinker, Huntresses, and Archers. And this Huntress change is amazing because I go to Tier 2 before I start really mass producing. And now I can get Moonglaive at Tier 2. Moonglaive at Tier 2 is unreal. It's not going to change the meta in terms of most people don't have Huntresses at Tier 2 anyway. So it's not going to, you know, people aren't going to be up in arms about it. But I think the damage output from Moonglaive at Tier 2 is going to be insane. I think that's a massive upgrade. I think that's really, really going to affect my strategy there, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out. Sentinel as well, research by default, amazing. Now you have a reason to get Huntresses, or you have a reason to tech to Tier 2 to get Huntresses while you're going Huntresses. Just free vision around the map for each one you produce. It's so cool. I love that they've made it free. It seems too good to be true to me, almost. I'm really excited about both these changes. This is going to really, really affect my game, I think. Mountain Giants, decreased cost from 425 to 350 and decreased supply from 7 to 6. Both absolutely necessary. When you compare a Mountain Giant to a Frostworm, who are both 7 food, the Frostworm was cheaper and just vastly superior, right? So this is really a necessary change for the Mountain Giant. I still don't think we're going to see many of them, but you never know. You never know. I'm definitely going to try. Hippogriff taming is researched by default. So cool. Now just get your 3 archers, throw down an Ancient of Wind, build some hippos, because you know you're going to be needing hippos. You mount those archers, and then when you unmount them later, I don't know. I guess you could do that anyway and just get the research. I love that it's free. Unnecessary to have to pay for your archers to get on their backs. I think this is great. Increase the frequency with which we see Hippo Riders too. Hippogriff Rider, increased hit points from 765 to 780. Amazing. We never, ever, ever see Hippogriff Riders, so this is going to help with that. Night Elf Buildings. Ancient of War base stats, reduced hit points from 1,000 to 900. Reduced bonus attack damage from 44 to 36. Unfortunate. That's really going to substantially hurt my Tier 2 Ancient of War pushes, I think. Still going to try it. They'll probably still work, but that 100 hit point loss and the damage loss is substantial. So I think they've done this also to help minimize the effectiveness of Ancient of War creeping, but it's going to hurt Ancient of War pushes as well, unfortunately. Ancient of Wind, removed Sentinel upgrade, that makes sense. Tech tree removed, yeah, it makes sense. Ancient Protector, definitely the weakest starting tower, I think, so I like that they buffed it a bit. It builds a little faster, decreased rooted attack cooldown, so it attacks faster. Decreased uprooted attack, so it attacks faster in general. Yeah, attacks faster and builds faster. I think that's really necessary because protectors are pretty subpar right now, so I like this. Moonwell, increased mana regeneration at night from 1.25 to 1.5. That's huge. That's really, really, really huge. I don't know if it's necessary. I think it might cause a lot of problems. Pushing into an elf base at night is going to be next to impossible now. You really have to time your pushes to be at day. Chimroost no longer requires an Ancient of Wind. Super cool. It's going to be a pain in the ass. Now those players who are going Bear Dryad Chim don't even have to wait for a wind in between. So that kind of sucks. But I like the change, and it means you... I don't know. I like the change. I like the change. And then neutral balance changes. We have a couple. Just 2 things. Reduce damage to summon units from 400 to 200. Oh. That's weird that they didn't mention that up on the Shaman. So, despite the decrease in mana on Purge, reduced damage. So, okay, maybe Purge is still not going to be an answer to Water Elementals or anything, because that's a hell of a nerf to Purge. We'll have to see. And Boots of Speed item shops now have 2. So, if the first hero gets there, the second one can still buy boots as well. Amazing changes. We've done everything now. Thank you for bearing with me through this whole thing. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you agree with any of my things, if you disagree, if I missed anything. Happy to hear about it. Again, guys, I apologize that I haven't been on much recently. Life has just been chaotic, and, you know, everything comes in waves. But I will be back. I love that this has happened. I'm really excited to dive into the PTR. Hopefully I'll be able to do it this week. We'll see. We'll see. But, guys, again, questions, comments, criticisms are welcome. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Either way, have a great rest of your day.